The Nintendo Switch 2 Direct just finally happened, and I am still in disbelief because after many years of rumors, leaks, speculations, we finally got to hear from Nintendo themselves about the long-awaited successor of the OG Switch, of course, after 8 years. So we are here to unpack everything that we just got from the hour-long direct, talk about my key takeaways. By the way, hey, I'm Kat, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. Thank you so much for joining. I'm going to be covering a lot about the Nintendo Switch 2, so if you are new around here and you want to hear more news and updates, and of course cozy games that are going to come out on this brand new Nintendo console, please feel free to stick around and subscribe. I would absolutely love to have you here. But for now, let's talk direct. Of course, we can't ignore the game that they opened up the show with, which was Mario Kart World, a brand new Mario Kart game following the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe that we have been with pretty much since the Wii U days. Of course, we've gotten so much more content and updates, but we will talk about it more later along with the other games that we heard about on the Direct. For now, I really want to talk about the Switch 2 hardware itself. They mentioned that this isn't just an upgrade to the original Nintendo Switch, it is in fact a console that they reinvented and redesigned from the ground up. So what exactly are we getting with the Nintendo Switch 2? Of course, we know that the Switch 2 is the next gen to the original Nintendo Switch, much like Xbox Series X is to the Xbox One or the PS5 to the PS4. So this isn't like a half-step upgrade anymore like the Nintendo Switch OLED was. This is totally new. And one of the biggest things, of course, that changed with this console generation is a bigger footprint, a bigger screen, a bigger Switch overall. The Switch 2 now boasts a 7.9-inch screen, up from the 6.2 inches of the original Nintendo Switch. With a bigger screen, of course, comes with a bigger everything, but they did mention that the thickness of the Switch itself stays the same as the previous Switch, which is nice to know. They were able to keep the slimmer profile since it is getting bigger this way. At least it can stay slim. On the Switch body itself, we get a new kickstand that's supposed to be more sturdy and more flexible. They show it folding all the way down almost completely flat, so it offers a lot of flexibility in viewing angles whenever you want to play tabletop mode. Now with the larger screen, it's probably going to be way more enjoyable using the Switch 2 as a tabletop, almost tablet-like experience compared to the original Switch, which was already plenty large enough for me for on-the-go situations, but I will never say no to a larger screen display. While the screen isn't an OLED panel, they described it as a vivid LCD, and it offers 1080p on handheld mode along with HDR support, which is double the pixels of the original Switch. I know a lot will probably appreciate this upgrade, as this was a common concern that I would hear about from the original Switch. They wanted just a higher resolution, better quality graphics, and now we're getting 1080p, which, while it isn't quite OLED level, newer LCD screens these days still offer a pretty good viewing experience, in my opinion at least. Maybe I'm easier to please, but I'm someone who grew up with the Game Boy and DS and 3DS line of systems, so I really don't mind a sacrifice in graphics if it means that I'm able to play games on a handheld. I've been fine with the 720p on the OG Switch all these years, so I'm sure the 1080p is going to be a very happy and welcome upgrade for me. Oh, and it also offers 120 FPS, which when you're viewing on a smaller 8-inch screen, I feel it will really make a huge difference with giving you that better experience and better graphics that you might have been looking for from the original Switch. The new main body of the Switch 2 also adds a second USB-C port, which should give you more freedom when it comes to charging at the same time as having something else plugged in, and also charging from the top of the Switch while you're doing tabletop mode, for example. I'm sure there will be lots more other uses that we can explore, but for now, the second USB-C is really nice. I own a Lenovo Legion Go and it has the top and bottom USB-C ports. It has come in handy many times for peripherals and for charging, and it's just a nice added convenience and option to have. Now let's quickly talk internals. The Switch 2 now boasts a 256GB internal storage, up from the 32GB of the OG Switch. So it's ×8 the size, and you won't immediately need a micro SD card for this, but when you do eventually purchase one, I probably will get one on day one. The Switch 2 now requires a micro SD express card, and your old micro SD card from your original Switch, Switch OLED or Switch Lite will no longer work on the Switch 2. So this will be a brand new purchase if you are upgrading from an older Switch console. If you watched the earlier teaser trailer of the Nintendo Switch 2, you were probably wondering what the extra button on the Joy-Con is, and it actually has something to do with another addition on the main body of the Switch, which is a built-in microphone. Yes, the Switch 2 now supports a feature they call Game Chat, which to me looks a bit like Discord. You can pretty much connect with your friends and family and have their game screens pop up on your screen, so you can stream whatever games you're playing to each other simultaneously, whether it's the same game and you're playing multiplayer, or even if they're playing something else, you can just hang out together and have a little party room, chat room. You can even adjust the screen sizes during the chat, whether you want to just focus on your own game or enlarge your friend's game and be able to watch as a third party as they play and stream the game for you, and maybe you can just call out some pointers and still be involved and immersed in their gameplay, which is really fun. With this new connectedness that they seem to be really focusing on with the Switch 2, they also introduced Game Share. So with Game Share and through the Game Chat feature as well, you're able to share with up to 3 people whatever game you're playing with. You only need 1 copy of the game, and say if you want to play something like a co-op or a multiplayer, you can just share your games with up to 3 people and play together. I know games are just going up and up and up in price, and even if it doesn't, it still adds up after a while. I love collecting games, so it's a nice thought that I'd be able to share with friends and family who might not have the same extensive collection as I do. We can enjoy games together with only having that 1 game copy that I own. They can also just try out a game that they're on the fence about and they want to learn more about and not quite ready to purchase yet. So now people will be able to borrow those games even digitally, which is, again, I keep saying nice, but it really is nice. And I think this will encourage multiple Switches to be bought within the same household, because now people can share all their games more seamlessly and not have to worry about, logging in and out of each other's accounts and having to deal with the same setup that the OG Switch had, where you can only get 1 primary console where you can play the games, and the secondary console would always need to be connected to Wi-Fi to confirm that you're able to and allowed to play that game, which is not always convenient, especially when a Nintendo Switch is handheld and you're wanting to play on the go while you're traveling outside of the house and just not having access to internet. The last change to the Switch 2's body is the side rails where the Joy-Con attached to. Instead of a sliding rail mechanism like the OG Switch that was quite flimsy, I know a lot of people had issues with it getting loose, or if unfortunately people have an accident dropping their Nintendo Switch, it could just totally snap off of the Switch body itself and could lead to expensive repairs. This time the Joy-Con attaches by a very strong magnet, so I did see online that this was another part of the Switch 2 that people were a bit nervous about after the first teaser trailer of the Switch 2. They worried that if a kid picks up just one side of the Switch 2, that the entire body of the Switch will fall off because it's just held up by magnets, but it seems like they were showing it is much more safe and secure, and the magnets are really strong on there. You have to place much more effort in detaching it than just a simple press of the button or pulling them apart. So with that, let's move on and focus more on the Joy-Con. Very creatively named Joy-Con 2. We just talked about the game chat feature, which is a pretty huge new addition to the Switch 2, and this can be accessed using the brand new C button on the right Joy-Con. So that C button is like a one-stop shop of all the new connection features that the Switch 2 will have. I do like the subtle color accents on the Joy-Con 2 and the way that they paid homage to the OG red and blue Nintendo Switch Joy-Con colors, but it's much more subdued and almost more mature, grown up and all of that. But while I do love the more simplistic, sleeker look of the Switch 2 with just the little bit of a color accent, I am still very hopeful that they come out with more colors for the Switch 2. I am a huge sucker and I'm still gonna end up buying this black version, of course, but if they come out with a white or more pastel colorful editions or more special editions, I can't wait to see the direction they take with that, since the only aesthetic that they've revealed so far for the Switch 2 is just this black version with the neon red and blue accents. The Joy-Con 2 also has larger buttons and larger thumbsticks, so that should provide more comfort when playing, especially for longer periods. They even expanded the SR and SL buttons as well on the inside of the Joy-Con 2, so you can continue using it as two controllers for a quick multiplayer tabletop session without having to purchase a second controller, much like the first Switch. If you do want a larger controller though, they are going to be releasing a new Switch Pro controller that also features the brand new C button. But we are not yet done talking about the Joy-Con 2, because besides the features that we're already familiar with, like the HD rumble and the gyro motion control, the Joy-Con 2 can now also be used as a mouse. Both the left and right Joy-Con can be laid on its side, so where the SL and SR buttons are, and be used as a mouse simultaneously. And Nintendo mentions that there will be more games in the future that will utilize this very fun and quirky controller feature. Leave it up to Nintendo to offer a gimmick like this, of course, but as usual, I can't wait to see what they'll do with it. It's not going to be the main way that I'll be playing games on the Switch 2, of course, but I'm still eager to try it out, just see what it's all about, you know. So with this recurring theme of the Switch 2 being the perfect console to play with others, whether locally or online, with their new game chat and game share modes, Nintendo will also be releasing the Nintendo Switch camera, which can be purchased separately. It will be available right on release date as well, but it is a separate accessory. And for all these online features that I've been talking about, you do need a Nintendo Switch Online membership to access the features in its entirety. They said that they'll be offering a trial run so that everyone can have a taste of these new connection features, but it won't be forever. You will need a Nintendo Switch Online to use it to its fullest if you are interested in using it. The regular Nintendo Switch Online and the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack will both be compatible with Switch 2. You can carry over your membership if you have it already for your OG Switch or Switch Lite, but of course they have to introduce a perk that only Switch 2 users will get. If you're subscribed to the Switch Online expansion pack, you'll also have access to the brand new library of GameCube games. I'm pretty excited for this one. I've been waiting for an opportunity to play Wind Waker on the Switch, and it is one of the games that they introduced for the GameCube Switch Online library. On release, it'll also have Soul Calibur 2 with Link as one of the playable characters and F-Zero. And for Nintendo Switch Online members, much like what they did for the NES and SNES and Famicom and Super Famicom, they're also releasing an exclusive Switch Online GameCube controller, which you can buy online from the Nintendo Store. I almost forgot about the brand new Switch 2 dock. That is because I mostly play my Nintendo Switch 99 0.9% of the time on handheld mode, and that will probably be the case for Switch 2 as well. But if you're curious and you might be someone who is the opposite of me and prefer playing on docked mode, the Switch 2 dock did also get some upgrades, which includes being able to output up to 4K and also the same HDR support like on handheld mode, but on your big screen TV. So yay. It also has a built-in fan, which will of course help keep your system cool once it's docked on there, and probably pushing it to the limits with all of these brand new games that are coming out. Phew, that is a lot of information. Which of these new features are you most looking forward to when you get the Switch 2? If you're purchasing the Switch 2, let me know down below. Now let's talk games. If you're like me, you were probably wondering about game compatibility and how that's going to work between the OG Switch and the Switch 2. Now, the Switch 2 will be getting new game cards. It might look similar to the OG Switch game cards, but it'll come in red. And also it'll have much faster data reading speeds, so this will pretty much open up all of these games that are larger and more demanding and more expansive that we previously couldn't get and access with the OG Switch. 3 types of Switch games will be playable on the Switch 2. First are original Nintendo Switch games that are still going to be compatible. I'm sure they'll release a much more detailed list and give us more information on this closer to release day, but they did say that it's going to just be compatible games. I have a feeling it'll be most Nintendo Switch games, with the exception of things like Ring Fit Adventure, for example, that relies on the original Joy-Con to be attached on the leg strap and the ring con, or maybe something like Nintendo Labo or Labo. You know, those specialized games that might just need the original Switch Joy-Con. I can see it not being able to be playable on the Switch 2, but besides that, I don't see why they wouldn't make the rest of the library compatible, since the Switch 2 is capable. The second type of Switch game that you can play on the Switch 2 are upgraded OG Switch games. Basically, these OG Switch games will be receiving a Switch 2 upgrade. The first set of games they mentioned, which will be getting the Switch 2 upgrade treatment, includes Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, Kirby the Forgotten Land, and the 2 up-and-coming and highly anticipated Metroid Prime 4 and also Pokemon ZA. And finally, of course, the Switch 2 has to be able to play Switch 2 games, but these are the games that are only exclusive to this console. You won't be able to play it with the OG Switch anymore, and it'll be games again which will be utilizing the Switch 2's new hardware. So if any of these games are the ones you may want to play, then that would be an obvious reason for you to get the Switch 2. I won't spend too much time talking about all the games that they mentioned. I think it'll be better to have a dedicated video on that so we can focus more on the upcoming games that we're excited for. But to mention a few highlights, I already mentioned Metroid Prime 4 and Pokemon ZA, but the game I'm probably most excited for, and I'm sure it's the same for most of you as well, it is Mario Kart World. It is just so much bigger and better in so many ways, and they were showing off the new game chat feature with Mario Kart World a lot. It's just going to be one of those perfect games to use this new connectivity feature for. For the first time ever, you can play with up to 24 people, which is a lot. And also in-game, there's just so much more freedom and flexibility. And apart from other new gameplay features and new characters, Mario Kart World is also somewhat like an open world game, because you don't have to stay on course. You can actually drive around and explore the entire map if you want to go off grid and just do your own thing. Take the scenic route or just go for a fun chill drive with your friends. There's a new photo taking feature which will be perfect to use when you are doing all the scenic and fun stuff in game. It just looks so good, and it looks much more expansive and more immersive at the same time. I saw a cow driving a cart at some point, and that is enough for me to want the game. Please and thank you. Mario Kart World will be releasing as a day one game for the Nintendo Switch 2, and other release day titles include Split Fiction, which comes from the creators of It Takes Two. It's another two-player co-op game that is perfect to play along with your friends, family, loved ones, etc. Hogwarts Legacy 2, which I believe is a direct sequel to the original Hogwarts Legacy. There's Hitman World of Assassination Signature Edition, Deltarune Chapters 3 to 4, which is a parallel story to Undertale, Bravely Default Flying Fairy, which is an HD remaster of the incredible RPG from the 3DS days, Yakuza 0, which is another fun franchise that I really love playing through, and one that I'm actually eager to replay, which is Cyberpunk 2077. I mean, CD Projekt Red already brought over The Witcher 3 to the OG Switch, which was a thing of magic. I remember everyone going crazy about that in a good way, because they couldn't believe that a game like The Witcher was playable on a handheld. Now it is more common and probably less impressive, I suppose, because we're getting the better, bigger, more powerful handheld PCs, but at the time that it came out, it was nothing short of impressive. So I have high expectations for how Cyberpunk 2077 should perform on the Switch 2. I'm really looking forward to it though. To close off the direct, we got a pretty lengthy trailer for a game by From Software. It's called Dusk Bloods. It's not coming out until 2026, but it looks like a really cool open world, very dark and gothic vampire story, it seems like. They also showed us Kirby Air Riders, which is a sequel to a game that was originally from the GameCube era. Sakurai will be directing this game, plus it's Kirby, so that's all I need to know. I'm definitely playing this game once it comes out. And the very last game trailer and the finale of the entire Nintendo Direct, they gave us Donkey Kong Bonanza. I must admit, I'm not a huge Donkey Kong fan. I was just never really good at the side-scrolling platformer Donkey Kong games. However, I would love to try this one. It's an open world Donkey Kong game, so I would liken it to Mario Odyssey. So open world platforming Donkey Kong game, and it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. This one isn't coming until July 17th, but still I think it's going to be one of those great staple titles for the Switch 2, much like, again, Mario Odyssey was. Now you're probably wondering the most important piece of information out of this entire direct, which is when is it coming out and how much is it going to cost? At least that's what I was most anticipating out of this direct. Well, it's scheduled to come out on June 5th. 2025, just to be clear, so a few months from now, but pre-orders will go live on April 9th. So definitely keep an eye out on your local stores and figure out how they'll be doing pre-orders and release day pickups. It might be a bit different depending on where you're from, so I would personally just call ahead of time at your local game stores and figure out how they're handling all of that process. I'm really hoping it's not going to be impossible to purchase, but if you are thinking of buying the Switch 2, this will set you back $449 or just about 630 Canadian. Nintendo also said there will be a bundle version which will include a digital copy of Mario Kart World, so of course that will be added on top of that price. For me, it'll bring it to just about 699 Canadian dollars, which is pretty steep sounding, but we'll see if I can even get my hands on it, depending on how pre-orders go or how my local game stores organize everything. If you made it to this point of the video, I appreciate you as always. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know down below if you're looking forward to picking up the Switch 2 right on release day, or are you holding off for now, maybe waiting on more news, reviews, updates? Are there any games from the Direct that you're most looking forward to? I can't wait to hear from you. I love reading all your comments. Take care, be kind to yourselves, and I will see you next time.